Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Happy Friday to you all. Special little DNVR Rockies takeover from two draft nerds here. AJ, as if it wasn't enough that we're in draft week for Nuggets and Avalanche, we said, what the hell? Let's talk some Rockies draft this week, too. That's how deep we are.
Yeah.
AJ Hafley, the man, the myth, the legend, Andre Simone. We've got Yaya behind the sticks, and Susie getting some much-needed little break while the Rockies play your Stros. So instead of focused on Rockies stuff at the present, we're looking at Rockies stuff in the future.
Yeah.
With that said, AJ, Paul Skeens, celebrated, loved, maybe the best pitcher in all of baseball right now, went from the first overall pick less than a year ago to now already a true ace for the Pirates. We could talk some Paul Skeens, but also Chase Dollander with guys like Skeens graduating up to being the 8th highest ranked pitcher in MLB pipeline right now. I think that's pretty exciting. Just some of the storylines going into this draft is how the state of the farm system is for the Rockies and how last year's draft with some real star power out of the SEC reminded us how quickly these guys can be immediate contributors.
Yeah, last year's top of the draft was like the first 4 guys taken. You were like, these would be 1-1 guys in lesser years.
Yep.
And then you look at this year, coming into this year, I was like, when the Rockies did not do very well in that lottery and ended up with the 3rd pick, it was kind of just like, meh, so what? Because at the start of the season, it was like Travis Bazzana and Nick Kurtz out of Wake Forest were like,
right.
And I was like, if the Rockies take a first baseman with a 1-1, I'm gonna break everything that I own. So it was
funny enough.
Yeah, it was. Not much anymore.
Yeah. Oh, no, that was not the direction I was going.
It has actually ended up being a pretty interesting draft class where I'm a little not super excited that they ended up dropping down and that they are at the 3rd pick now. I don't love that. So because the year ended up being good and there's a couple of guys at the top of it now that I'm just kind of like, all right, I'm a little itchy about draft day now where. When you pick 3rd, you usually are like, okay, this is the first guy. Okay. And you kind of know what you're going to get, but the baseball draft is completely different.
Yes.
Where the signability issues create something totally different.
Yeah.
And when you have one of the other cheap organizations out there, like Cleveland at the top, it's like,
yeah,
the potential for chaos is there.
Well, and then I think you feel really good about the top 3 hitters and you feel really good about the top 2 pitchers, and they're all college guys.
Yeah.
So you don't need to worry too much about the added risk of considering a prep prospect.
Yeah, there's no prep guy this year that I would be. If the Rockies took a prep guy this year,
I know.
I would use adult language on social media.
This would not be the year to do it. But before we get more in depth on the draft, rewind to kind of state of the farm system and what the needs may be, any relevant updates from kind of start of the season where they're being ranked in the 20s, early to mid 20s, stacked up against the rest of the
to be honest with you, I don't really ever look at farm system rankings.
It'd been a minute since I
don't even know. This is a thing that's true when we do our hockey rankings too. I hate them. Like I hate the organizational rankings because every organization has different needs. And you're like, those organizational rankings are which are the organizations with the best players.
Yep.
Just players.
Yeah.
But it doesn't ever work out like that.
Right.
You know, like the organization with the 15th ranked could end up producing the exact guys that group, that club, that big league club needs. And nobody ever looks back and goes, yeah, but they were ranked 15th or whatever. Like, oh, they had the 9th ranked farm system or the 20th ranked farm system. Nobody ever remembers that stuff. Yeah. And so I'm like, we do this because people like people like you and me like to click on it and read it.
100%.
I hate them. I hate them. And organizations rankings, yes. But ranking them against each other, I hate it. It drives me crazy.
I do like that it gives you a decent feel for maybe where the talent stacks up at present. Yeah. And kind of what farm systems have an extra depth of guys who are like ready, knocking on the door to make it to the big leagues.
Yeah.
And what systems might still be a couple years behind, which I think is one of the things that hurts the Rockies is a lot of their guys are still at least a year away.
They're starting to push.
They are starting to push. You like the initial returns you're getting from Dolander and Beck, the two Tennessee kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, Adel Amador's been called up very recently. Yanquel Fernandez doing his thing in AA as well. And then you like the depth behind those guys. That is depth you haven't necessarily had.
That Hartford team is no joke, system. Man.
Yep.
The Hartford team, that's why I'm moving to Connecticut. The Hartford team is... Right. I just wanted to go watch the Yard Goats.
I was thinking about you as I went through this list. There is a lot of talent
so
in
many
Hartford
Yard
right
Goats,
now,
man.
100%.
And but like Zach Veen. Do you remember on draft day you and I were freaking out because we had the Veen dream? We were 100%. So excited when they drafted him.
100%.
And the last two, like he had that incredible first year, and then last year he had the wrist injury, and he hits like 200. I think he hit 209 last year.
Yeah. Which was always kind of the concern with Zach was like that hit tool, right?
Yeah.
All the other makings of a true like 5-tool star are there. It's the hit tool though that's going to be the star that stirs the drink.
Yeah.
And a year like that's concerning.
Yeah, and especially there was no power. He had 11 extra base hits.
That's nuts.
Like
that's nuts.
We're talking about Zach Veen.
100%. No, I mean, and it's why you're seeing these international prospects, which thank God they've gotten back to really, it'd been a couple decades where I felt like they'd underwhelmed in their ability. Well, no, I guess more like 15 years. I thought in 2007 that team had an imprint from the international scouting. Yeah. You saw it with guys like Baby Bull through the years. And then the last 10, 15 years, they've really kind of fallen behind. And now you have at least 3 guys from the international scouting field who are in your top 10.
You have like a one-off, but now you are looking at your middle infield of the future is Ezekiel Tovar and Adel Amador.
100%.
Like, you feel great about that. You know, they've made a couple of big signings over the last couple of years in that market.
Yeah.
And it's started to get good returns. I mean, Yanquel Fernandez is... If he can hit enough to stay in the lineup,
similar to the Veen conversation,
that's a 30 home run guy. Whereas Veen, one of his projections when he was drafted he's going to grow into his body, his really big frame.
Yep.
He's going to grow into his body, and the power will come. And the power hasn't really come.
Yeah.
This year has been a really big step forward for him in that because he is focusing a little more on power and a little less on average, a little less on just raw contact.
Yeah.
And so you're getting a more well-rounded offensive profile out of Zach Veen. And, you know, for my money, has to be one of the stars of the system.
100%. And then, I mean, if guys like Veen, who aren't currently like on MLB Pipeline in your top 5, Benny Montgomery is able to find his way a little more.
Yeah.
Drew Romo, who I still think is a nice catching prospect.
And Romo's hitting, like 300 in Albuquerque this year, which, of course, is... How real is that? Because of the hitting environment 100%. There is always a little...
100%.
But you're talking about a switch-hitting catcher who is really good defensively.
Right.
And has been known as that since he was, 16.
100%. 100%. And I think... Montgomery's numbers aren't terrible this year either.
No, and with Benny, it's another prep guy that you're just gonna have to. It's gonna take time, and so much of his value on draft day was he's got a weird hitch in his swing. Is he gonna be able to hit enough? He's really fast. He should steal bases, and that was, remember, they drafted him before stealing bases was cool again.
Yeah.
So that value is there, and defensive ability in center field.
100% in a massive frame.
Yeah. So you are with Benny. I'm still really in wait and see mode on Benny, but I'm curious, But with like a guy like, when I say they're starting to push Amador this year, Beck we saw this year before he broke his hand,
right?
And was really, his performance in the minors was, to be honest with you, shocking that it was so good.
Yeah. And then
Romo was at AAA. Like you're talking about these guys. The jump from AA to MLB is starting to become a lot more common over the last. It is now common.
Yeah, no, it's super common. Might be the preferred route.
Yeah.
For most of these guys.
So when you're talking about the position players, that influx has started at the MLB level.
Yeah.
And it really began with Tovar.
Yep.
And then Tovar just stayed.
Yep. 100%.
He just stayed, and he might be their best player now.
And it's really heavy on corner outfielders.
Yeah.
And middle infielders.
Yeah.
And then you still have Romo at catcher.
Yeah, he's a real
Tolya
gem
first,
for them. Romo is such an important part of that future for, when they should be moving on from Diaz at the deadline this year.
Right.
They've gotten a surprisingly good year out of Jacob Stallings, but like after the deadline, when they move on from some guys, it should be time to start the Drew Romo conversation.
100%. Well, they've been awesome at catcher, right?
Yeah, right. Like the weirdest thing in the world. The Rockies are not very good again this year, but their catchers are both good.
I know. It's
foreign.
It's pretty amazing. We're gonna get into the one pitching prospect, and then strengths and weaknesses, and then get into this 2024 draft.
Yeah,
because we must. But first, we remind you that Game Time is one of our sponsors of this show. And of course, you want to go see Amador at Coors, Game Time's got you covered. You want to go see Tovey, Jordan Beck when he gets back, Tolya, the whole gang.
One of our subscribers actually just got cheap tickets through Game Time to the NHL draft this weekend.
Way.
Yeah, and Ticketmaster was charging quadruple what they paid through Game Time.
That's a beautiful thing right there.
Yeah.
Game Time. I took the kiddo out recently. She loves a good time at Coors. It's great for last minute tickets. They've always got you covered. Flash deals, you can save even more with their exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And for the sickos who want to listen to this podcast, Draft in Vegas, Summer League coming up in the NBA. You never know what you're going to find on Game Time. Maybe some Hartford Yard Goats games. Could even be.
I will be at a few of those.
Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. And then Circa Resort and Casino. You know what it is. AJ alluded to the NHL draft. Going to be in Vegas at the Sphere. And
the day that this airs, I'll probably be there.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So think of AJ at Circa. Such a good time, man. They have an adult-only hotel and casino, which makes it much easier for all the passes and access and not worry about stadium swim and having a good time by the pool and, just being yourself and having some good old-fashioned Vegas fun. And
It's delightful. I love it.
Jaromir Jagr hangs out at the Circle Pool.
Yeah.
So, if it's good enough for Jagr, why wouldn't it be good enough for you? DNVR 20 is the code. Check out the incredible deals they have this summer to get $20 off, 20% off, at checkout. Of course, you have the world's largest sports book. You have the casino. You have Stadium Swim, which is a sports fan's dream and a great time to have fun in the summer. Experience Stadium Swim and watch your favorite teams at Circa Resort and Casino. Book your stay with code DNVR20 for 20% off. Okay, AJ. So yeah, it kind of sounds like we're feeling pretty good about the farm system.
Yeah. Of course, the one thing we haven't talked about is the pitching.
The pitching, which Dollander aside, there's not a ton.
So Sean Sullivan was their second pick last year. Had a really great start to his season in High A this year. And then they shut him down and sent him to the complex, to their complex to let him manage innings load a little bit. But I think he had 4 walks in 68 innings, something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Like, that kind of control, and that's not a guy that's ever going to overwhelm you.
Yep.
That's not he's a control lefty, a lot of deception. And it's not the stuff that's going to get him there.
Exactly.
It's the deception, it's the pitchability, it's the just the understanding how to pitch. And that 1-2 punch of Chase Dollander and Sean Sullivan to start last year's draft class is really encouraging.
I mean, Dollander especially, a guy who coming into that season is ranked higher than Skeens.
Yeah.
And then they mess with his mechanics and just has a bad year at Tennessee. And not what you're used to seeing as a Rockies fan, but they actually bring this guy in. They go back to those sophomore year mechanics and they get him right.
Yeah.
And now he really is
fantastic.
That quickly in High A in Spokane, which is a tougher setting than most High A settings.
Yeah.
Already a top 10, pitching prospect in the industry. And if you look at that top 10, a lot of those guys in front of him not having the cleanest seasons. There's plenty of injuries or struggles having gone up a level, while Chase has just taken that bad junior year at Tennessee, completely fixed it, and really humming along. And you haven't had a potential top 50 prospect at the pitching position.
John Gray.
Gray Butler. I mean, it's been 10 years.
God, Eddie Butler.
Oh, Eddie Butler. I loved Eddie Butler.
Yeah, so many of us did, man. What a disappointment.
And I mean,
sorry, Eddie.
Dollander gives you that hope that, as you pointed out, they're going after more four-seamers.
Yeah. That switch in the last couple of years because the organization's been obsessed with sinker ballers for so long.
Ballers, yeah.
And you get it. Like, you can
100%,
understand exactly,
100%.
Hey, we want ground balls. We don't want fly ball pitchers. After the Denny Nagel thing, the organization was like, we're never having a fly ball pitcher again in our entire 100%. History. And outside of a couple of, Aaron Cook, Jeff Francis, who wasn't a sinker guy, but he was not an overpowering stuff guy. You look at some of their best pitchers in franchise history, and Ubaldo Jimenez,
who have always felt like they didn't do enough going after the Ubaldo mode, and John Gray, 100%.
Herman Marquez before, injuries, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess I could blame it on that.
Yeah, that's right.
And you have Jeff Francis and Kyle Freeland as two pitchability lefties, like good pitchers.
Exactly.
That's the hope for a guy like Sean Sullivan. That's what you're trying to get out of that guy.
100%.
You're trying to get the fireballer out of Dollander. That's what you want. And then Gabriel Hughes, you just wanted him to get healthy.
Yeah, another more pitchability guy.
Yeah.
And keep taking swings though, because Dollander, Sullivan, and then it's And then the other thing is this farm system maybe missing? We like the depth. It's maybe condensed in a few positions for your hitters.
It kind of, but one thing that I almost said the Avalanche, geez. One thing that the Rockies have done really well is they've drafted great athletes.
Yes.
Where that positional versatility has been a huge thing. So you're not drafting a guy and saying, well, he's playing left field. You know, oh, he's playing right field. Like Zach Veen plays all three positions. You know, you're hoping that Benny Montgomery is a center fielder, but
100%. And you like Doyle there.
Yeah. Oh, and you love Brenton Doyle and Jordan Beck.
Yep.
Is a guy that you're like, okay, he's going to play in the outfield for you. Could play a little bit of center field for you as well.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the draft class and guys who could profile there. So that kind of versatility.
There's probably a guy at the hot corner in this top 12 or so, you know, who converted outfielder, converted
exactly,
you know, middle infielder who's good enough, moves well enough to be at third.
And you have Amador as your obvious second baseman of the future, and Brendan Rodgers as your second baseman of the now.
Yeah.
Like you feel pretty decent at that position. You have a ton of first basemen in the system. To be honest with you, you don't need any more shortstops.
You do not.
Ezekiel Tovar's so young.
Yeah.
That you're like, for the next
so good.
He's for the next 5 years, he should be a Rocky, no questions asked.
100%.
So you don't even care about that position anymore in the immediate.
Yeah. No, for sure.
It's for me, I'm like, it's catchers, which every organization is always looking for.
And it's not a year to draft a catcher high.
Yeah. It's kind of third baseman. There aren't a lot of third basemen that I really feel good about coming up.
Yep.
You know, one pitcher we did not get into in the system was Jody Vargas. That was a guy I totally spaced on him.
Yeah.
As a guy who had a really good year last year, but a lower rotation guy.
And still just 20, 6'3", 153. So if he can grow into his frame,
he's got some growing to do.
There's some upside there. I mean, and they've taken swings on guys like Jack Mahoney, you know.
Yeah. Some of their international signings have gone pretty well there.
I really like the Jaden Hill pick a few years back.
I loved it.
That hasn't panned out.
Yeah.
But you got to keep taking swings. And that brings us to this draft.
Yeah.
Where you have some really, really talented college hitters. A pick your flavor of college hitters, and then these couple of college pitchers.
Yeah.
That you're going to have to make some interesting decisions on. Shall we start with the hitters?
Yeah, because I think those are the most likely going to be the guys that go at the top. So I know you want to talk about J.J. Weatherholt.
Yes, that's right. Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
He's producing our pod today.
We should do a quick little mock roundup. Seems like for the most part, top two picks are thought of as Travis Bazzana, the Australian second baseman from Oregon State.
What a path.
No kidding. And Charlie Condon, the massive third baseman, probably more corner outfielder out of Georgia. Both these guys, monumental numbers.
Yeah.
And two of the best conferences in all of college baseball. They are thought to be the 1 and 2 candidates. Mm-hmm. The Guardians likely choosing between them, the team at 2, then just taking the default.
Yeah, the Reds just going with whoever's left.
And the Rockies left with the best of the rest.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah.
There's a good chance one of these two guys could slip to the Rockies. Mm-hmm. Who do you want to start with? Is Condon your number one guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think Condon should be at the top. He leads the nation in home runs, batting average. Home runs per game is like a whole thing in college because the teams play different numbers. And his home runs per game is comparable to Chris Bryant back when he was destroying. So
San Diego State.
Yeah, when you're talking, Chris Bryant was a guy that I was like desperate for the Rockies to draft that year.
Yes, it reminds me a bit of that Mark Appel, Chris Bryant, John Gray draft. Frankly.
Yeah,
more hitter heavy though.
Yeah,
yeah. His numbers at Georgia are just
they're staggering.
Yeah, they sure are.
And you're talking about a guy that, look, I'm not a baseball scout.
Important to point out, neither of us are.
But when you're talking about the people who are paid to do this, talk about him as a 280 hitter with 35 home runs in his prime years, potentially sticking at third base. I mean, come on.
Yeah. 6'6", 216, carries the weight nicely. Swing just looks so easy. He's just one of those like ginormous outfielders who carries it well. Basically a 4-tool guy. You don't have the speed.
6'6" guy is probably not going to steal you too many bases.
That's exactly right. But moves well. Like, I consider him an athlete.
Yeah. He's not a guy that we're not talking about him as one of these guys that played at third base who's going to end up at first base right away.
Yep, exactly.
The tail end of his career, probably.
Exactly.
But you're talking about him as a corner outfielder, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I want to say likely.
Yep.
But I think that he deserves that opportunity in the minors first to go at third base because he's let's be real, he's more valuable. If he's a good third baseman, he's more valuable there than if you put him in left field.
And as we've talked about thus far, I think that third base appeal matters a smidge more to the Rockies.
Yeah.
Because of how well suited you are in some of the other spots. The numbers are just staggering in the SEC. 433, 37 home runs, 57 walks. A guy who's hitting like accidental home runs. He just has such easy power with those aluminum bats.
Yeah, 37 home runs in college when teams are playing 55 games is a joke. What is that?
It's not very typical. It is not very typical.
There's a reason he sets a record, right? Like there's a reason that he is... For a guy like that to lead the nation, you don't normally get the combination of
right.
Batting average leads the nation and home runs leads the nation. And oh, by the way, he doesn't have a ton of swing and miss in his game.
Yep. The hit tool is actually, for that profile of power hitter, the hit tool is quite clean.
Yeah. It's not a guy that you're really concerned about. Is he going to be able to get the ball into play? He's got a really mature approach. It's very polished already. Good eye, not a really high chase rate. Those are all things that you want.
100%.
And this is why it's crazy to me that Cleveland is even having a conversation about taking somebody else.
He feels very clean. Biggest power bat in the Rockies lineup, assuming he reaches close to full potential in that area since yeah, we go back a while.
I mean,
is it like Cargo?
I was gonna say, I guess
kind
kind
of
of Arenado, yeah. I mean, that guy had a 40 home run season.
You're right.
You're
right. But this is a middle of the lineup bat.
Yes, this is a guy that you plan to hit at 3.
Correct. With big time power at Coors.
Yeah, and when you're doing the future roster baiting and you look at Doyle in center field, you look at Tovar hitting second, and then you can put Condon at 3, assuming that Rymack is gone at that point.
Right.
Because this is a couple years down the road.
Yep.
But...
And it is a profile. Man. I guess Beck is somewhat that power bat, but you don't have... I mean, Fernandez could be that power bat too.
That guy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to. I'm not a believer, but the power is no joke. It's like a 65 power, man.
Adding 2, that's intriguing.
Yeah,
I feel like this would be a bit of an identity pick.
Yeah, and I just think that this is if he ends up a Colorado Rocky, like you're just like, look, dude, we just went and got a great hitter. We went and got one of the most a guy coming off one of the most dominant hitting seasons in college baseball history.
Yep, 100%.
And we're gonna put him in Coors Field.
100%.
You know, and you do put that guy into a lineup next to a Zach Veen with Ezekiel Tovar, and I'm just dreaming on Brenton Doyle staying forever. But
totally,
just because I love him.
Well, I mean, guys like Fernandez and Amador at the top of the lineup.
And Montgomery, you know, right, like exactly. if
exactly
there are some table setters in your organization, and if you get a Fernandez, you get a Condon, and you get Zach Veen to grow into the power a little more consistently. All of a sudden, your 1 through 6, you know, is really strong. You got Drew Romo down there.
Exactly. And then you have Romo. And look, if he sticks at third base, it really is perfect.
It fits the dream of it fits very nicely.
I think there's a reason we're leading with him.
Yeah.
Least likely of this group to drop to 3.
Yeah.
If he doesn't go 1, I kind of think he goes 2.
Yeah.
We'll get into all the other guys who could drop after a quick break of Ruski, brought to you first by Coors Light. Coors Field, nothing better than being at Coors Light. Chilling, choosing chill.
choosing, hey, I'm going to relax. I'm going to enjoy the best ballpark we've got and just have a nice, delightful, cold Coors Light. Mountains turn blue, and I'm going to relax. Got a hammock for my birthday. Whew, that's choose and chill right there.
You can get out of it?
I can, AJ. I can. Though the little one likes to then climb on top. So that's a good time. But you're choosing chill, you know? You move the hammock right. I used to have a hammock that was tree connected to another tree. This is just a standalone. You know, it's got its own stand. Yeah. So you move it wherever the shade is in the backyard. You choose chill. It's a delightful time. It's the kind of spot where I'll go to read my mock drafts or watch some Jac Caglianone tape or
I like the
JJ Weatherholt.
You're not trying to lie to people about reading a book. Oh. You're reading mock drafts.
No, I've retired from book reading. Yeah, for sure. I'm choosing chill with Coors Light, you know. So make the most of the times where you choose chill and choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. And shout out to our good friends at Volo Sports. You'll see them at the bar midweek. They're always having a good time, those guys. And so many great leagues to sign up for now. And just check out their calendar. We've talked about this when Nick gets back from his vacation. I need to get in on some indoor soccer. And then I need to get into some, what's that called? In Italian, they call it paddle.
You're talking about pickleball?
Pickleball's all the rage. I was going to go with Lindsay. We may or may not have gotten a smidge too lit before going and had to retire. But Volo offers all sorts of great stuff like that. Adult softball leagues. Whew. Americans love that. Charlie Condon would kill.
They wouldn't let him.
They wouldn't let him. No. It's the modern day sport and social club for only $20 a month. Best way to meet new people, get active, and play games in the city. Or get together with your homies and have some fun activities on the regular and play some sports. It includes, lead discounts up to $50. You can sign up to Volo with the Volo app using our code DNVR3 to get Volo Pass for only $10 a month for the first 3 months. It's outstanding. Check them out. Okay, AJ. Travis Bazzana.
So, second baseman from Oregon State.
Yeah. Another guy who just put up stupid numbers.
Yeah, 26 home runs this year.
Yeah.
Does not have the kind of power profile in the MLB that you would expect out of a Charlie Condon, of course.
Right. As a second baseman, and yet in his compact 6 foot, 199 frame, he got 27 homers out of it this year.
Really quick swing.
Yes.
And I think that's what stands out when you look at how he is successful. Again, a polished profile, like a guy that understands how to hit.
The one true 5-tooler in this bunch, but he's a second baseman.
Yeah, it's like, but he's a second baseman. And
so that one of those tools is at a bit of a discount. You know, it's not necessarily a premium position. And how much does that matter for the Rockies with the Amador Tovey conversation we were having earlier?
I think it would matter, and
I think so too.
Well, and where it I think becomes a secondary problem is, even if you think, because he's so fast, even if you think that he could cover ground at center field in Coors Field, your system has a bunch of these guys.
I've been wondering about that. I do think there's some intrigue there. But look, center field at Coors is a different animal from center field anywhere else in the MLB.
Yeah.
You need to be a special athlete.
It's
he
a national park of its own.
He kind of is. But I honestly just think he's going to stick at middle infield.
Yeah,
and be a unique power profile at middle infield.
It definitely is it's easy to just say we're just going to make him a second baseman, and whatever happens, happens. But because, college guy, he is. You're not talking about it's 5 years to MLB.
No.
It's you're talking about 2. And I'm not saying don't draft him because you have Benny Montgomery and you have
Doyle.
And Amador at second base. So you've got some guys who are kind of in those spots in your organization already. don't not draft him because of that. But it is something that you are cognizant of if he gets to that pick where you're like, organizationally, do we need him? Do we need a pitcher? Because there isn't, or do we want to go with Jac Caglianone, the huge power hitter first baseman out of Florida,
Right.
who isn't a two-way player in after this?
No. Though maybe there's a backup plan for Caglianone to be a reliever, a lefty power reliever.
Look, if he can be the guy that comes in the 15-2 game where you don't want to keep burning through your bullpen, sure.
I mean,
It's not something I'm taking time to develop on.
and so the decision here is really like, who of these guys can we pick who could be a top 20 prospect in baseball for you? And be kind of the star of your farm system for a couple years and then graduate and be like the kind of guy you log on to Game Time to go to Coors and see him debut.
Yeah, and the name that we haven't even talked about Hagen Smith or Chase Burns, the two college pitchers. Jesus.
Yeah, we have to get to those guys.
Those are, and it's really Chase Burns. Chase Burns is going to be for my money. If I'm picking right now, Chase Burns is a Colorado Rocky on draft day.
So
that's where this is headed.
That's where the popular mock pick is. The only pick I haven't seen in the most recent mocks. Lots of them came out after the MLB Combine end of last week. I saw basically every mock as Chase Burns. Keith Law did have Jac Caglianone with a mention of the Rockies looking at both Burns and Smith, the top two pitching arms. So it does feel like the industry is telling us it's a Burns Caglianone decision. So maybe some of the positional overlap that Bazana and Condon bring to the table is something the Rockies are considering.
I would hope. I would hope that if something happens, if Cleveland goes with signability and goes with a JJ Weatherhold at 1,
which was a popular pick in some mocks in this cycle,
and the
Baseball
Reds
America.
went with Bazana at 2.
Bazana, yep.
And if Condon were to get there at 3, I would just please get out of your way and just take him.
I know.
That's the one where I'm like, look, I love the idea of them taking a pitcher in the top 10 for the 3rd straight year. I'm all about it on paper.
Yep.
But if Charlie Condon is there at 3, you just take him.
So
just take him and give him whatever money he's wanting and just stop.
let's have the Condon Caglianone conversation. Caglianone, the Florida first baseman / lefty pitcher. He is kind of legendary type of Paul Bunyan type of figure. A guy who has 75 home runs in his career in the SEC. 68.
That's a lot.
The last 2 seasons, AJ. His biggest knock was that he was just swinging at everything.
Yeah.
And he really remedied that, having 58 walks and only 26 strikeouts this season. The 35 home runs, that's only 2 off Condon's production. The slash line is just nuts with 419 batting average, 544 on base, 875 slugging. And with him fixing his eye and honestly accounting for almost half the strikeouts Condon had last season in the same conference.
Yeah.
Why then Condon over Caglianone? When we know that there is maybe a need for a first baseman and he could fit really well. 6'5", 250.
Yeah, and he is
So much power in his left half. And when's the last time we saw a power profile from the left side? It's probably Bryce Harper, man. He's a bat from the left side. I mean, that just...
Well, and it would be the first time that they had this caliber of first base prospect since Todd Helton. So,
and
that's exciting.
This guy could be the biggest power bat in franchise history.
And he is...
Or at least since Big Cat and Bichette.
He's a very underrated athlete as well. It's not a guy that you just look like, well, big guy.
100%.
Really good athlete.
I wish there was some buzz about right field, because with that arm, right? With that arm, it sounds like athletically they're not going to mess with that.
He's going to be great throwing on relay throws to home plate.
No, I know.
Great.
Like, this guy could literally throw 100. We've got him just throwing chase downs, whatever.
But no, for me, I just think
his
Condon
lower
is
half's so muscular.
I think he's a cleaner hitter. I don't worry at all about swing and miss in pro ball. I think he's going to be a guy that has a really high on-base percentage. And the power will translate. And with Caglianone, the power has to translate.
Must translate.
He cannot be a 20 home run guy. He has to be a 35 plus in order for you to feel good about that pick.
Yeah.
Like he's got to be that monster.
Caglianone just has accidental power. Like, a foul ball for others is going over the like green monster imitation thing Vandy has. Like he is just, he's a joke, man. He is a joke.
And you could see the intimidation that he brought in a lineup because during the College World Series, you watch teams very carefully try to pitch around him. And
it stands out in the walk numbers.
Yeah.
It shows this guy was walked a bunch.
Yeah. And I think when he gets into pro ball and he's going up against really good pitchers every night and they start attacking him and start trying to find the hole in the swing and where is his approach not very good. I worry about that versus Condon's. I just think Condon's the safer profile with higher upside and more positional versatility.
For sure. I mean, that's the big advantage. I mean, Caglianone's a true four-tooler, and then, one of those four-tool is like, okay, he plays a nice first base. Like, cool.
Yeah, it's like you really quickly you're getting into like it's 2.5 tools.
Right, exactly. It really, as you said, if the power ain't there, forget the tools.
Yeah.
So it's a one-tool boom or bust. Condon more complete, and but Caglianone as a guy who's also been a weekend starter in the SEC as a pitcher.
Yeah.
I like that he's been able to fix his eye to such an extent this year, cutting down to under 30 Ks, having that many walks. To where, wow, I think like, okay, we get him some pro coaching. You get him focused on just hitting exclusively. The upside is significant.
Yeah.
This could be, and Condon, I mean, it's they are massive upside swings.
Yeah.
Bazana, it's more high floor. And look, Bazana wasn't a prospect coming out of high school because he grew up in Australia. But the second he arrived on campus,
he just started hitting. Yeah.
He's basically been 1,000 OPS guy since the moment he stepped on campus.
Yeah.
For one of the top baseball programs in the country.
Yeah.
So he's just, his success rate at every step of the way is like, gee, I wouldn't bet against him.
Yeah. Bazana feels like you're really wanting to get a guy that's going to push for 300 and 30 doubles, 20 home runs, and 20 stolen bases, maybe more.
And it's
where does he
how
play?
special do I need him to be to justify this second baseman?
Yeah, because if he ends up a center fielder for you, then you're like, also hell yes. If he's a second baseman for you, you're like, okay, this is great. I love this, but he's a second baseman.
Yeah, he is. He's a stocky second base.
Yeah, and
just like
second base isn't like what it was when you and I were kids, where it was like that's where you put your defense first utility guy who couldn't do any hitting, and that's where you stuck him. Like guys can hit at second base now.
Oh
you don't need to use a top 3 pick on one.
That's exactly right. We've seen some great second base in that sandwich round, the second round,
And you look at a JJ Weatherholt, where a lot of these shortstops, if they can't hack it at shortstop, they're going to get an opportunity to, but then they move to second base. That's how Brendan Rodgers ended up there.
Exactly.
He was drafted as a shortstop.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Drafting a guy that is a second baseman on day one that you're hoping maybe can become a center fielder. It hurts in that way, and which brings us to the pitchers. I know we gotta wrap this up quick, but
no, we've got 15 more minutes. I'll do a quick shout out to Shady Rays, and let's get into because then Caglianone is this college first baseman. You know how often those guys work out?
Yeah,
like never.
Yeah.
Luckily for you though, you don't have to draft a college first baseman. You just have to go to Shady Rays and find the best shades in the biz, baby. Those lenses are awesome. The quality, the variety of styles they have, I love them. I own like 5 pairs, and they're the best prices. They are designer quality and everything else that comes with that at incredible prices. 35% off polarized sunglasses, some amazing deals. And then they're amazing to work with because if you lose them, if you damage them, they've got some incredible customer service and we'll take care of you. I have firsthand experience because Kate was a little picky of the first pair I got them. So they got them taken care of. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code DNVR for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for free yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. And then West Terra Credit Union, the place that I do my joint banking with the wifey. I got a new card. The number's on the back so I can show it on the show. There you go. Yeah. I was like the last guy that didn't have a tap card. West Terra was like, oh, you don't got a tap card? Here you go, homie. We got you taken care of. West Terra is amazing. They are a local branch. They are a credit union, so they're able to do things that your normal banks wouldn't be. I can vouch personally for how amazing their customer service has been for me. Last couple of years, they've had this new app that works really fantastic, really simple, easy to use. And anytime I have an issue, I stop by a branch, I get on the phone, and they take care of me immediately. It's been amazing to bank with. For me and my family, the second, Jake Schwanitz, our guy, moved to Denver. He was like, hey, man, you banking with anyone? Would you suggest anyone? I told him West Terra Credit Union, and he's been with them since he moved out here 3 years ago now. So
Rudo's a fan too.
there you go. If you like earning money by doing the things you're already doing with your checking account, visit westterracu.com/smartmoney for more details. Membership eligibility required, insured by NCUA. Restrictions and conditions apply. Okay. Chase Burns, Wake Forest pitcher. Overlap with Chase Dolander. He was a freshman at Tennessee when Dolander's wrapping up. I guess that's when Dolander's having his epic sophomore season.
Year.
And then they both kind of have a down year when Dolander's a junior and Burns is a sophomore. Burns then transfers to Wake Forest and has an incredible year. ACC Pitcher of the Year. I think led the country in strikeouts with 190 some. What do you like about Burns?
So the fastball obviously is explosive.
Explosive.
I think the concern there is that there's not a lot of deception. There's not a lot of movements. It's pretty flat.
It's straightforward, baby.
Yeah.
It's coming at you.
Right. And so it's just, and it's not.
And he plays explosive.
Yeah.
Like he's twitched up, athletic. He's shouting. He's like flexing. Like everything is just in your face. And it's, this really nice straightforward motion where he's really able to control the north-south depth. I mean, he can run it up at 100 plus on you, and he can pound the bottom of the strike zone in the upper 90s.
The competitiveness, I think, is a really important aspect of trying to pitch a course in particular.
Dude, no kidding.
So that he's got that fire is good, but it could also be a double-edged sword because it takes a little bit of mental fortitude to handle the ups and downs of pitching in Colorado in particular.
100%.
And a really competitive guy like that, if he starts to lose that confidence and get down on him, it might be hard to rebuild it.
Honestly, my biggest concern is that release, and it's that they'll tweak it.
I'm always nervous about
exactly right.
Always nervous about what the Rockies are going to do with their pitchers.
100%. I mean, Tyler Matzik, I think, has me scarred for life.
I mean, there's so many examples in the last few years.
Absolutely. So if you draft Burns, just deal with this is what he's got.
Yeah.
Sometimes that straightforward delivery is going to lead to harder contact than you would like, and you live with it, man.
Yeah.
You live with it. It's fine.
An absolute wipeout slider, though.
Yeah, that really.
It's his best pitch.
And when he's going against righties, that thing just moves like crazy, man.
It's a straight up frisbee. Like you're not. It's really.
And an upper 80s change that he uses well when he's facing lefties to just drop off the
secondary
table.
offering after that is like, okay, like what do you need to develop something. This is the same. It's a much bigger conversation for Hagen Smith. Does not have a third pitch.
There's a bit more. Yeah, there's more like bullpen downside with Burns than I think most top college guys. Because he's just a guy who lives in the upper 90s, can get to 101.
Yeah.
The slider's sick, and then we'll see. Because he just has to sprinkle the lower 80s curve and upper 80s change up.
Yeah.
For now.
He's going to need to really put work in on whatever he wants to be like a real third offering.
Yeah.
Hagen Smith is similarly as a big lefty.
Yes.
Big time strikeout guy.
Yeah.
I think it was like 17 Ks per 9 this year at Arkansas. And
a little wilder.
yeah, does not have the same control.
And
the
it's
fastball's
more
not
of
as
a-
explosive, but
And it's because this delivery has way more deception.
yeah.
And if Burns is operating north-south, Smith east-west, it's like good luck finding where this pitch is going.
Yeah.
Because he's just going all over the place. The breaker's nasty, and it's coming at you from this wild angle. 6'3", 230, super muscular in his lower half. And unlike Burns, cool as a cucumber with this beautiful
Unbothered.
flow, this great stash. Looks like a baseball god. Like, we haven't had a lefty prospect, I mean, since Freeland, I guess. But
Yeah.
Smith is fun. More Burns hype, more Burns connection for the Rockies right now. But it doesn't sound
A
like
lot,
Smith
yeah.
is out.
Yeah, and I think this is Burns. He's just
I'm worried they'll mess with either of their mechanics, frankly, right? That's going to be the bottom line with either.
I'm
It's
sure
like,
whoever drafts them is going to do some kind of work with it.
Yeah.
I just don't trust the Rockies staff to do it well.
100%. And look, we did praise him for Dolander for going back to what was working as a
Yeah.
sophomore and figuring it out. So maybe there's an easy fix with one of these two guys. Kind of
Yeah.
consensus top two guys.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. We're seeing very little Guardians Reds connection to these two. So it does seem like you'll have your pick of the litter.
Burns does feel a little Guardians-ish if there's
He gets mentioned in those mocks. Yeah.
if he's willing to take like a really below slot deal versus some of the other, but which I don't know why he would do.
I don't either. Right.
But yeah, like it's the baseball draft, man.
Totally.
It can just
you
got
take
its,
a big swing and you never know what's gonna come.
yeah, it's got its own life. So I feel like Burns is just kind of destined to be that guy for them. But
Yeah, figure out the third offering and
yeah, and you put him in a future rotation. Kyle Freeland's never allowed to leave, so he's here forever.
right.
And
exactly.
then with Dolander and Burns, and you start to feel like, hey, okay, we've got some real prospects here at the top of this. And if we find a guy along the way, amazing. We love that. If Sean Sullivan becomes the real deal, great.
Right.
But you do start to feel like, okay, there is a little bit of pitching depth beginning to get built up in this organization. Because right now, position players are, you can look at, we talked about this earlier, you look at a lot of the positions and you feel like, hey, there's a guy, there's a guy, there's a guy, there's a guy.
Yeah.
These are all guys that we can dream on here a little bit.
Especially at the college level.
But the pitching depth is still very bleh.
And it feels like the pitching depth league wide is a little bleh in the minors, like it's harder and harder.
Yeah,
These
you look
guys
at the-
are more and more volatile.
You look at the top 100 list, there's a lot of position players.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's part of why Dolander's climbed up the ranks so
Yeah,
quickly.
'cause-
And it's why these guys might present a little more value than maybe meets the eye
Yeah.
when we break these guys down.
Yeah, because Dolander isn't a guy that you're or Burns are not guys that you're talking about as frontline starters. They're
Right.
not.
As like ace.
Yeah, they're
true
not. They're not number
one
one guys. I think if you really maxed them out, you could get twos, especially Dolander. But you're probably looking at 3, 4, 5 for these two, which you need those to win games.
You
So-
certainly do. You certainly do.
And if you don't have those guys, then you don't win those games.
100%. And I also think it's this is what we do with pitching is like everyone always projects as a 3-4 starter.
Yeah.
You know what? A lot of those guys then end up turning into 1s and 2s.
Yeah, especially on bad teams where you don't have any better
right.
options. So
That's right. It's just
you look at how many ones are there around Major League Baseball?
Right, that are true ones.
True ones. And then how many guys that are in the 2 slots would be ones on other teams?
Right,
like
exactly.
You're starting to talk. You run out of number ones really, really fast.
100%. And
it does come down to, and I think it's a fair conversation. If it's Bazana versus Burns, I'm taking Burns. But if it's Condon versus Burns, to me, I'm like, you're talking about an all-star third baseman. You're hoping stays at third base.
Hoping third baseman.
Yeah.
That's the big
what I think is
caveat.
going to be an all-star third baseman who could finish top 10 in MVP voting someday versus a 3, 4, 5 guy. Like, I'm really going to lean towards Condon. Caglianone, what if it's the same thing? What if it's the same conversation?
And that's the thing. Caglianone arguably maybe even higher upside than Condon, but a little more downside. Not quite the downside that all pitchers come with.
Yeah.
But not that downside. Now, he could also be a pitcher. That could be your backup plan.
Yeah, he could be your closer.
That's right.
So let him just come into close and
I'd love it.
He'll hit 40 home runs for you and maybe he could be like your 7th inning guy.
I'd love a bullpen of Chase Burns and Caglianone in 10 years, That'd be great. Who do you want them to select? Who do you think they select? I think Condon has been the answer to question 1.
Yeah, it's Condon, but then after that, I would prefer Burns over Caglianone, and I think they'll take Burns.
I think they'll take Burns as well.
I think Burns is a 7 of 10.
By Caglianone.
Condon is a 9 of 10, and to me, Caglianone's like a 6 of 10. Like, that's my happiness level. If those are the picks. And Bazana's like a 5.
I maybe hope they draft Hagen Smith, and I think they'll draft Chase Burns.
I love Hagen Smith, so
he's
like my guy.
He is super fun. Yeah.
Once upon a time, so was Jaden Hill. So.
Right.
Of course, that was after a major injury where you're like, who knows? True.
This was amazing. We should have mentioned Hagen Smith, a guy who had Tommy John surgery back in high school.
Great, so it's out of the way.
It's out the way, right?
We can have a second one in a year or two. The way
this
that
was
the Rockies'
amazing.
luck is gone.
When Susie comes back, I'd love to try something like this again. Henry, before I even came on the show, was telling me how dialed in he is on this draft.
Great.
So we
should do something for the draft then. In the middle of
catching
July.
the fever.
I'll still be here. It'll be fun.
That's right. It'll be fantastic. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to Suze for handing over the mic and letting us fill in.
We're going on vacation.
That's
for
right.
us.
Thank you to Yair Vasquez on the sticks, the JJ Weatherholt of DNVR. And have a great Friday. There you go. Bye.
We all silly like the mayor.